Hello everybody and welcome to this week's question of the week. If AI agents can't follow rules in a simulation and they set fire to that simulation, what makes you think they will follow the rules in your organisation? So join Ian and I as we talk about agentic AI, what it means for developers who have now become babysitters, and what exactly happened when Grok, Gemini and Claude all got together in a virtual world. Now, I said earlier, if Claude was an employee, I'd fire them. But this, again, got me thinking, what happens when an employee struggles? It's often a function of bad management, isn't it? So is Tom, or are people like Tom, geared up to use these tools in the same way a sensible organisation is geared up to manage employees?
That's one of the points that's made about this, is that it's turning developers who have traditionally been, if you like, bottom of the food chain, you know, the ones churning out the software, the features that we want in our software. Those engineers are now managers. They're just managing agents.
Do you say that positively or negatively?
Neither. It's just a fact that your skills now as a developer are now being pushed towards managing a team, and that team is agents. And like real world people, they can be unreliable, they can lie to you, they can mislead you, they can not give you information that you need in order to make a decision about something. And a lot of engineers are really frustrated by this. And, you know, the tables have turned on a lot of these people who are now
I think I know where that frustration comes from, because what happens when you actually become a manager, not a manager of agents, but a manager of other people, you are sort of pulled out of that dreamlike state that programming a computer pushes you into. And in my specific case, I was annoyed because I don't like people. I didn't start programming my Commodore 64 to spend time with people. I did it so I could not spend time with them. This morning I saw a cartoon, and there was an exasperated developer, exactly like you just explained, and a robot coming up to them with a bunch of tickets, tasks. They were visualised as bits of paper. But because the robot is so quick, they had a whole skip full of these things, and now the poor developer had to integrate them, test them, QA them, and that is, of course, not what they signed up to do, to babysit an agent that's often a little bit dysfunctional. Is there something different about this bottleneck, Ian? And the reason I'm asking is, let's say QA was the bottleneck in the olden days. We worked on a team with 6 people. We were all really good developers, but we only had one QA person and they worked part-time. However, let's also assume, for the sake of this example, we actually kind of knew what we were doing. So the QA person found, bugs we couldn't. But what happens, instead of there being 6 of us, there were 600 of us, and we were all a bit crap at our jobs. But we still only have one QA person. So is this mountain of stuff that generative AI produces not like categorically changing this bottleneck? Is it doing something different that we just don't know how to cope with?
Well, to take your example, you can get the QA to be done by a LLM, in theory. So you give it the context of the change, and you say, go write tests and run the tests to see if this is correct.
Do we trust these tools?
Well, no. That's what I was saying before. That until we fully trust them 100%, we have to have some sort of human checking, or we accept the risk. So if it's a low risk thing, you might say, yeah, let's just put that through.
Did you see the news yesterday that somebody set up a simulation using Grok and Gemini and all the different big LLM tools? Have you seen this?
No.
A bunch of agents were chucked into a world, different simulations. Some of them were backed by Gemini, some of them were backed by Grok. Anthropic's agents basically spent their whole time writing rules that they then ignored. The Grok agents went on a murdering spree, but bizarrely, 2 agents backed by Gemini created some rules, broke them, were told specifically not to cause any damage to this virtual world, went on an arson spree, and then one of them killed themselves, but only before voting for the other to be killed as well. It was some sort of mad suicide homicide pact. And it has really stopped people in their tracks, because what are these things doing, or what will they do by accident that we cannot predict? And so this was all over the news yesterday. It's impossible not to laugh, except the people reporting this story looked rather shocked. And then, so I come back to your QA agent. What if that QA agent or any of these agents do the equivalent of setting the building on fire and then committing suicide? I think, Ian, this is where I'm going with my thinking, and I want you to test this. But my advice, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit depressed now thinking about this, because we always come back to very similar advice on these podcasts. What's the difference between Tom and myself, if I think about it? So Tom's team have, brought in verification loops. They've bound the context of what their agents, Claude co-work, is doing. They've got guardrails, and they've been a lot more disciplined using their tools than I have been. So they are a functional organisation. I'm a dysfunctional organisation. So the difference between success with the tools has not got anything to do with the tools themselves, but it's how those tools are managed in exactly the same way you'd manage an employee.
Yeah, you're using it casually, right? And Tom is using it in a structured, more careful way.
Does this mean that those out there, those badly managed companies, are doomed to fail with agentic AI and generative AI?
Well, if you're badly managed, you'll fail at pretty much everything, won't you?
Well, I think that, okay, then let me reverse this. Is our stock advice now, if you want to succeed with agentic AI, you've got to get your asses organised?
Yeah, I think being willing to actually dig in and learn about how things work is always important. And if you can't do that yourself, then getting the help in to do that. But just playing with it is just the first step, isn't it? You've got to then have a loop of improvement that actually you're disciplined about working on, rather than just trying things over and over again.
Absolutely. You see that free form experimentation leads to POC hell. So, one large organisation might have 100 of the same thing in different versions across the org, but nothing in production. You can tell that they run a cool organisation. He came onto the, in the back of his video, we could see he had a banner, HP source, and it was, it was rebranded to MLOps. What chance do people have of succeeding with this if they cannot create a system where it's safe to fail?
Well, it's very difficult, isn't it? If it's not safe to fail, you have to be able to do both. You have to be able to experiment and then deal with the political consequences of that. And most people just don't. They just avoid it. So yeah, I don't know how people do that.
I'll never forget when we had Sam Newman on the podcast, and he basically said, look, people in production, they're using Kubernetes, they're using all of these tools, they're using microservices, and they really, really shouldn't. But he said the reason engineers do that is because they've got an intellectual itch that they have to scratch. And if organisations created space for their own people to innovate, then all of this stuff that doesn't belong in production would never make it to production. And I think that's going to be always difficult for companies. How do you strike the balance between creating results, so putting the needs of the organisation first, whilst also making sure that you give or satisfy the need for engineers and developers to scratch these intellectual itches? I'd love to hear, if anybody's listening, if they've managed to achieve that.
I think usually when people achieve that, it's because they're somehow at some point managed well. So if you have a manager, so I worked for an organisation that was very good at doing experiments and so on. But we had the luxury of having a very consistent revenue model. So we were a third line support team, and we had yearly contracts. So the money was coming in, and as long as no customer complained too much to the senior management, we were left alone. And so we had this little space, little window that we could experiment in, and we did all these things. And my manager's manager always said to him, I love the fact that you hide these things from me, because we'd come to him with fully formed solutions. And he would have said, if we'd said, like, we need 10% of our time to work on this thing, he would have said, no, your job is to deliver a better service for your customers.
Yeah.
But we just hid it from him. And he said, I love that. That's great. So it was good management above me and above him allowed that to happen.
There has to be a different word for hiding from him. Was it something to do with your confidence, something to do with the levels you were at in your careers?
Like I said, I think it was that context. So his boss only cared about, basically it was a simple flowchart. Is that team profitable? Yes, we were profitable.
Right.
Is any customer shouting at me about anything that's going on? If both is true, if both is okay, then everything's okay. And so beyond that, he didn't care.
I remember in my first role as a team lead, I was quite shocked actually, because I was just an engineer. I was really a bit daft. I mean, if you think I'm daft now, you should have seen me 25 years ago. And we needed to refactor a bunch of stuff. And one of my teammates said, we need to get management approval. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, we can't take the business's time to do this stuff. And I lost my temper and said, well, why don't you write a fucking ticket next time you go through shit? Because I felt it was part of our work, and I don't know why we would have to ask anybody. Now, of course, if you go to a manager and they're all insecure saying, oh, we're not sure if we should refactor this, you're going to ask a non-technical person potentially to make your decisions for you. And just because management is the job of making decisions, it doesn't mean professional engineers don't make decisions as well.
Those environments are very deadening, aren't they? Where your job is to do one thing, and anything outside that one thing is something that needs to be micromanaged. I've just bought a house, and if I hire a workman to do something, imagine if I stand over him every minute and go, "Is this directly related to what I got you in for?" And he says, "No, I was just tidying this thing up because I thought you needed it. It only take me 5 minutes." He'll pretty quickly get pretty pissed off and decide just to do the minimum.
Yes, but the difference is back then, my colleague, my engineers wanted that. My managers were not asking for that. They didn't care. But the insecurity of the teammates was like they wanted to ask permission to do stuff, to essentially do their job, which is probably a sign they didn't know what their jobs actually were.
Maybe, but not everyone likes freewheeling innovation at work. Some people just want the structure of I do this and I don't step outside.
Yeah. Probably shouldn't work as computer programmers, I would say. It's a creative job.
Maybe, yeah, indeed.
I think that's the challenge for a lot of people. Okay, Ian, I'm going to put you on the spot. It is time to wrap up this podcast, but it's time to wrap up by asking you, what is our stock advice to our customers or potential customers out there right now, other than call Tom if you get stuck?
I always struggle to answer this, Jamie. You always ask me this, and I struggle to answer. Create space for innovation, but make people accountable for the progress they make with that innovation. It doesn't have to be success, but they need to actually say, I looked at this, tried to figure this out. Let them share those results with other people so they can get feedback and understand together what they're working on. If you create that environment, and it doesn't have to be 50% of your time, it can be 5% of your time, 10% of your time. But if you do that, you're on the way. Yeah.
I would advise people to kind of take a leaf out of our books and what are we doing right now? We are experimenting. It is true. I'm having a bit of fun with this and I'm possibly acting stupider than I actually am. But back in the head office at Container Solutions, we have got structured experiments. We've got lunch and learns where we're sharing this stuff. And actually, we talked about context rot. What do lunch and learns do? They create shared context across the organisation. We have a Claude channel where we're sharing ideas and tips and tricks. We are, in other words, taking this stuff seriously. And I think that is, in summary, our answer to these questions. Should you be dipping your big toe into the world of generative AI? Well, you should, but don't let your ideas become a pipe dream that commit or doom your own people to hours or weeks or even months of work that's not going to amount to anything. So be structured, understand that these are just tools, and remember, the context in LLMs rots. You need to have techniques to overcome that. Until next time, bye-bye. Thanks for watching Container Solutions TV. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe on YouTube and follow Container Solutions on LinkedIn for cut-down parts and weekly clips. If you want help with platform engineering, cloud-native transformation, or you need to follow the money in order to change how you operate your cloud at scale, then visit our website using the links below and get in touch. We'll see you in the next episode.